Thrown from a crashing helicopter, Staff Sergeant Fred Zabitosky wakes up on the ground. He doesn't know how he got there, doesn't remember falling, doesn't remember the helicopter getting hit, doesn't remember being thrown 60 feet through the air when the aircraft broke in half and crashed. His back is broken, his ribs are crushed, he's on fire, his face is burning, his uniform is burning, the jungle around him is burning. Through the smoke and flames, he hears screaming. The copilot, still in the wreckage, still alive, trapped in a twisted metal coffin that's about to explode. North Vietnamese soldiers are closing in, shooting at the downed helicopter, shooting at Zabitosky, trying to finish what the crash started. Every part of his body is telling him to stay down, to hide, to crawl away before the fuel tanks blow, before the ammunition cooks off, before the enemy reaches him. But the copilot is still screaming, "Help me, please help me." Zabitosky looks at the burning wreckage, at the flames, at the ammunition and fuel about to explode, at certain death. He starts crawling toward it. This is the story of the troubled teenager from New Jersey who found purpose in the army, who went on 4 tours to Vietnam, who was thrown from a crashing helicopter and went back into the flames 3 times, and who said the Medal of Honor belonged to everyone who wore the Green Beret, not just him. Fred William Zabitosky was born on October 27, 1942, in Trenton, New Jersey, into chaos, into instability, into a childhood that gave him everything except direction. His home life was unhappy, turbulent, the kind of environment that breaks kids or makes them run. Zabitosky ran frequently, away from home, away from problems, away from responsibility. He found trouble easily: vandalism, petty theft, the kind of stupid teenage crimes that seem harmless until they're not. He spent time in reformatory, learned what consequences felt like, didn't learn enough to stop. By 17, Zabitosky was heading nowhere. No education, no prospects, no future that didn't involve more trouble, more running, more consequences. Then he made a decision that changed everything. On his 17th birthday, he walked into an army recruiting station in Trenton and enlisted. "I love the discipline and I love the pride," Zabitosky later said. "This was the first time I ever experienced either." The army gave him what his childhood never did: structure, purpose, brothers, a reason to wake up in the morning that didn't involve running away. Basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, was the first time he'd ever been outside the New Jersey area, the first time he'd succeeded at anything, the first time anyone expected something from him, and he delivered. He found his home, his calling, his reason. Zabitosky volunteered for special forces, the Green Berets, the elite, the soldiers who operated behind enemy lines, who did the missions no one else could do, who lived by a code that meant something. He deployed to Vietnam in 1965. First tour, learning the jungle, learning the enemy, learning what it took to survive in a war where the front lines didn't exist. He came home, went back. Second tour, then third tour in September 1967. By then, he was a combat-ready Green Beret who knew his job, who'd earned the respect of men who didn't give it easily. He was assigned to MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, the classified missions, the operations that officially didn't happen, the teams that went into Laos and Cambodia, where American forces weren't supposed to be. By February 1968, Staff Sergeant Fred Zabitosky was operating deep in enemy territory, leading 9-man reconnaissance patrols, gathering intelligence, staying alive, doing what Green Berets do. On February 19, 1968, everything he'd learned, everything he'd become, everything he believed would be tested in a way that should have killed him. The night before the mission, team leader Doug Glover told Zabitosky something that made his blood run cold. "I had a dream that I'm going to get killed. I know I'm gonna die tomorrow." Glover and Zabitosky were friends. They'd run missions together, trusted each other, fought beside each other. But a team leader who believes he's going to die can't lead effectively, can't make the decisions that keep everyone alive. Zabitosky made his choice immediately. "Doug, I'll go in with you as your assistant team leader." He'd take the pressure off Glover, handle the tactical decisions, keep everyone focused, keep keep everyone alive. The Tet Offensive had begun weeks earlier. North Vietnamese army troops were using Laos and Cambodia as staging areas. MACV-SOG was sending 5 teams into denied territory to determine enemy troop concentrations, to figure out if a second offensive was coming. Zabitosky's team would insert east of Atopu, Laos, deep in enemy-controlled territory. 9 men, Americans and indigenous fighters, against whatever they found. 2 helicopters carried the team in. They landed, offloaded. The helicopters lifted off, disappeared into the sky. The team was alone, miles from friendly forces, surrounded by enemy troops, doing the job. Then the North Vietnamese found them. The attack came fast. A numerically superior force, maybe a company, maybe more. Automatic weapons fire from multiple positions. The 9-man team was outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. Zabitosky rallied his team immediately, deployed them into defensive positions, exposed himself to concentrated enemy fire to direct their return fire, showing them where to shoot, what to hit, how to fight. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Too many enemy, too much fire. They couldn't hold. Zabitosky made the call. Move to the landing zone. We need extraction. Now, he covered their withdrawal. Rifle fire. Grenades, anything to slow the enemy advance, to buy his team seconds, to keep them alive long enough to reach the LZ. They reached the landing zone. Zabitosky positioned each man in a tight perimeter defense, moved from position to position, encouraging them, controlling their fire, keeping them focused. Mainly due to his example, the outnumbered patrol maintained its precarious position, held the enemy back, stayed alive. Tactical air support arrived. F-4 Phantom jets, dropping ordnance on enemy positions, buying time, keeping the North Vietnamese at bay. Then the rescue helicopters arrived. 2 Hueys, coming in hot, under fire. The enemy pressed their attack, trying to kill the Americans before they could escape. Zabitosky repeatedly exposed himself to fire, adjusting suppressive helicopter gunship fire around the landing zone, standing, pointing, directing, making sure the gunships hit what needed hitting. The helicopters landed. The team scrambled aboard. Zabitosky positioned himself in the door, M16 rifle, delivering fire on the enemy as the helicopter took off, covering the extraction, making sure everyone got out. They lifted off, climbing, accelerating, getting away. Then the helicopter was engulfed in a hail of bullets. The Huey shuddered, spun, lost control. The pilot fought it, couldn't recover. The aircraft was going down. It crashed hard, broke in half at midsection, twisted onto its right side. The impact was catastrophic. Zabitosky was thrown from the aircraft, 60 feet through the air, hit the ground hard. His back broke, 3rd lumbar vertebra, several ribs crushed. The pain was beyond description. He lost consciousness. How long, he never knew. Seconds, minutes. When he woke up, everything was wrong. His rifle barrel was bent from the fall. He was out of ammunition. The helicopter was burning, fuel streaming, ammunition starting to cook off. North Vietnamese soldiers were closing in, shooting, trying to finish them. I was hurting bad, Zabitosky remembered. Now, all of a sudden, I was faced with the possibility of losing my whole team. He looked around. He was the only one thrown clear. Everyone else was in or near the wreckage. The helicopter had broken at midsection. Bodies, screaming, fire. Zabitosky got up. His back screamed. His ribs wouldn't let him breathe properly. He started toward the wreckage. He reached the cockpit, started dragging out a dazed pilot, got him clear, asked him to help get the co-pilot who was still screaming inside. The pilot refused. It's too late. No chance the co-pilot could live. He left, crawling away, dragging Zabitosky's bent rifle, leaving Zabitosky alone with the burning helicopter and the screaming co-pilot. Zabitosky looked at the flames, at the fuel, at the ammunition, at certain death. The co-pilot kept screaming, "Help me! Please help me!" Zabitosky crawled back into the burning helicopter. The heat was intolerable. The smoke choked him. The flames licked at his uniform, his face, his hands. He reached the copilot, started dragging him. The man was trapped, pinned. Zabitosky pulled, strained, his broken back grinding, his crushed ribs stabbing, every movement agony. He got the copilot loose, started dragging him toward the opening, toward safety, toward air. The last fuel cell blew. The explosion threw both men clear of the wreckage, both on fire. Zabitosky's uniform burning, his face burning, the copilot burning. Zabitosky started beating out the flames, on himself, on the copilot, smothering them, stopping them, refusing to let them win. A second rescue helicopter appeared. Luke Nance, a Green Beret medic, jumped out, started providing covering fire, shot an NVA soldier point blank out of a tree. More enemy soldiers were coming, lots of them. Nance's helicopter didn't quite land, hovered. Too much fire, too dangerous. The pilot Zabitosky had rescued earlier started crawling toward them, 60 meters, through enemy fire, trying to reach safety. Zabitosky heard screaming from the wreckage again, different screaming. His team members, still alive, still trapped, still dying. He started back into the helicopter, third time, into the flames, into the smoke, into the ammunition cooking off and fuel exploding. I made my way inside the cockpit, Zabitosky recalled. I felt my face and shirt burning. He reached another team member, started dragging him out. The heat was overwhelming. His burns burned more. His broken back screamed. He kept moving. Another explosion, bigger. The remaining fuel, the ammunition, everything. The blast threw Zabitosky clear. Again, he and the man he was dragging both flew through the air, hit the ground hard, both still on fire. Zabitosky beat out the flames, again, on himself, on the soldier. Then he started dragging the unconscious man toward the hovering helicopter. Through a curtain of enemy fire, North Vietnamese soldiers shooting from the tree line, from the jungle, from everywhere. Despite his serious burns and crushed ribs, he carried and dragged the unconscious pilot through enemy fire to within 10 feet of the hovering rescue helicopter. Then he collapsed. Luke Nance and others grabbed both men, pulled them into the helicopter. The Huey lifted off, climbing, escaping, getting away from the kill zone. Zabitosky lost consciousness, woke up later in a field hospital, covered in bandages, burns, broken back, crushed ribs, multiple injuries, alive. Doug Glover didn't make it. The friend who dreamed he would die, who knew, who told Zabitosky the night before. Others from the team survived because Zabitosky went back 3 times into flames that should have killed him, to drag out men who would have died without him. On May 14, 1969, President Richard Nixon presented the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Fred Zabitosky in a White House ceremony. Zabitosky stood at attention, listened to the citation, every word documenting what happened on February 19, 1968, the thrown from the helicopter, the broken back, the crushed ribs, the 3 times going back into the flames, the enemy fire, the unconscious pilot dragged to within 10 feet of rescue. After the ceremony, reporters asked Zabitosky about the medal, about what it meant, about being a hero. There is no such thing as patriotism in a combat situation, Zabitosky said. You don't think about medals, promotions, or even the flag. You don't think about why you are there, or even your family. You think strictly about the people you are with and what you can do for each other. I wear the medal, but it was earned by Doug Glover, my indigenous team members, and all the Special Forces enlisted men who served on special projects. All the guys who wore that beret in combat have done just as much as I have, even though they may not have received the Medal of Honor. That's how Zabitosky saw it. The medal belonged to everyone who fought, everyone who wore the Green Beret, everyone who went into denied territory and did missions that officially didn't happen. He was just the one who survived to wear it. Zabitosky served 4 tours in Vietnam total, became one of the Army's experts on long-range ground special reconnaissance, the missions behind enemy lines, the operations in Laos and Cambodia, the classified work. He retired from the Army in 1977 after 30 years of service. Master Sergeant, 3 decades of giving the discipline and pride the Army had given him back to younger soldiers. He could have walked away, enjoyed retirement, lived a quiet life, But Zabitosky understood something about service. It doesn't end when you take off the uniform. He went to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs as a civilian counselor, helping veterans navigate the system, dealing with their problems, their injuries, their trauma, their struggles to adjust to civilian life. For nearly 2 more decades, Zabitosky served. Different uniform, same mission, taking care of his brothers, the ones who came home, the ones who were struggling, the ones who needed someone who understood. On January 18, 1996, Fred Zabitosky died following surgery for a brain tumor. He was 53 years old, too young, too soon, but he'd lived more in 53 years than most people live in 80. A road on Fort Bragg was named after him, Zabitosky Road, a small tribute to a soldier who embodied everything Special Forces represents. His name appears in ceremonies, in memorials, in the stories old Green Berets tell young Green Berets about what the beret means, what the standard is, what's expected. The story of Fred Zabitosky is about transformation, about what happens when a troubled teenager finds purpose, structure, brothers, a reason to be better than he was. Zabitosky could have stayed in trouble, could have spent his life in and out of reformatories and prisons, could have become another statistic, another kid from a bad home who never found his way. Instead, he enlisted at 17, found discipline for the first time, found pride for the first time, found something worth fighting for. He deployed to Vietnam 4 times, ran classified missions into enemy territory, led teams that did things officially never happened, became an expert at the most dangerous work the Army had. On February 19, 1968, he was thrown from a crashing helicopter with a broken back and crushed ribs, woke up surrounded by enemy fire, heard his brothers screaming in burning wreckage filled with exploding fuel and ammunition, and he went back 3 times into flames that should have killed him, through explosions that threw him clear, despite burns that covered his body, despite broken bones that made movement agony. He dragged out survivors, one at a time, beating out flames on their burning bodies, crawling through enemy fire, refusing to stop until he collapsed 10 feet from rescue. That's Fred Zabitosky, the troubled kid from Trenton, who found his home in the Army, who wore the Green Beret with pride, who went into the flames when everyone else was getting away, who said the Medal of Honor belonged to everyone who served, everyone who wore the beret, everyone who did what needed doing even when it meant probable death. Doug Glover died that day, the friend who knew, who dreamed it, who told Zabitosky the night before, but others lived, pulled from burning wreckage by a man with a broken back who refused to let them die. Zabitosky wore Doug's medal, wore it for the indigenous fighters, wore it for every Green Beret who went into denied territory and did impossible things, wore it for 30 more years while counseling veterans, while helping his brothers navigate life after combat, while giving back what the Army gave him: discipline, pride, purpose. That's transformation, that's redemption. That's Fred Zabitosky, thrown from a crashing helicopter, went back into the flames 3 times, saved lives that would have been lost, wore a medal that belonged to everyone, lived a life that proved troubled kids can become heroes if someone gives them a chance and they decide to take it. That's the legacy, not just February 19th, 1968, but 17 years old, walking into a recruiting station, 30 years wearing the uniform, 19 more years counseling veterans, a lifetime of service that started with a troubled teenager who needed discipline and ended with a Medal of Honor recipient who gave everything back to his brothers. That's Fred Zabitosky, Master Sergeant, Green Beret, the man thrown from a crashing helicopter who went back into the flames because that's what you do for your brothers every time, no matter what.